Oh, hey, look at this. Some people out there say the administration of the senile old loser has no grasp on reality. And I say au contraire. That is Trump derangement syndrome there. They understand reality. They just apparently don't care. Look at this. The senile old loser. U.S. Treasury Secretary says trade war that we started, that we're pushing, that this senile old loser initiated is not sustainable. What? You mean the trade war this senile old loser started with the country that provides so many of our goods, everything from electronics to clothing to pharmaceutical type stuff that comes in? Are you telling me 145% tariffs, 145% tax on the American people for purchasing goods they have gotten used to purchasing? Are you saying that the administration states that's not sustainable? Wow. So there you go. At least they understand reality. President Trump says tariffs on China will come down substantially. When will they come down? Who the hell knows? What does substantially mean? Who the hell knows? What the hell's going on? Who the hell knows? When you have a senile old loser as president of the most powerful nation in the world, you just never know what's gonna happen. Anyways, I know some people out there get frustrated that I keep calling him the senile old loser. But I figure it's the only weapon I, as an American, actually has, is the weapon of words, right? That's one of the things that Trump showed us, right? He comes up with nicknames, right? The senile old loser in his brain comes up with the most hilarious nicknames in the world for the people that don't do what he wants. So I'm just going to keep calling him the senile old loser. Every single time you see that fat ass, senile old loser just slugging his way along, pretending to be president of the United States, that's what I just want you to think. Like, oh God, we have a senile old loser as president. So anyways, it's a hell of a thing. And it's going to get bad. The dominoes are starting to fall. They're not really falling yet. They're kind of tottering. And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that and how Trump has basically just stated that we lost the trade war that we started. That's good. That's good as an American. I mean, that's the great part about being the most militarily powerful country in the world is how often we're willing to lose. Have you noticed that? Nobody will shut up about how powerful we are. We're the most powerful country in the entire world. So then why do we keep losing? I mean, we stalemated in Korea, so that's a stalemate. Then we lost in Vietnam. We lost in Iraq. We lost in Afghanistan. We lost the war on drugs. We lost the war on poverty. We've lost the trade war with China. We just keep losing, and losing, which is kind of tired of that. Hey politicians, could you fight us a war we can win? But I don't know what war can we win. Again, think about this. We lost Vietnam, we lost Afghanistan, we lost Iraq. Right? They used to talk about that. Right? The folks in Vietnam are running around in their pajamas. We lost against people running around in pajamas. And I do have to wonder, maybe pajamas is the thing. Has anybody ever thought about this? Have everybody thought about this? Maybe the problems is that our soldiers have too much jock itch and maybe athlete's foot. Maybe that's the problem. They're the biggest, strongest, most well-equipped military to ever exist. But man, when you got a bad case of jock itch, I mean, can you be expected to go out there and kill people? Maybe that's the thing. Maybe pajamas is the way to go. Maybe, I'm going to put this out there. This is my little Aspie brain just going full tilt. What if, I'm putting it, What if we put our U.S. Marines in underoos? In underoos. And we got them good underoos, too. We got them like Captain America underoos. Maybe then we could do something like win a war. Because I don't understand. We've got like F-35s, and we have stealth bombers, and we've got ICBMs, and we've got 13 aircraft carriers. We have so much. And yet we keep getting our asses whipped by poor people wearing pajamas. So maybe it's like asymmetrical warfare. Maybe it's asymmetrical warfare. You know what I'm saying? Like we have like the F-35 and they have Wonder Woman underoos. And maybe, you know, you can't be what you can't see. You know, the whole empowerment thing. Maybe because they're wearing like Wonder Woman underoos, they can literally fight F-35s. I'm just gonna put that out there. U.S. Marines, give them some good Captain America underoos. And maybe, for one fucking thing in my entire life, we could actually win. You realize that, like, as an American, so again, I'm getting close to 50. So what did we want? What did we want? The first Iraq war, we quote unquote won. But here's the thing, right? Like, we fought the first part of the Gulf War, and then we got a certain way into the war. And then basically George Bush I was warned, if you go any further, this is gonna get really bad, and it's gonna be hard, and we might lose. So as the great Mozzie from White Collar used to say, you can always have a happy ending. It just depends on when you stop telling the story. And so the first George Bush decided, hey, we're gonna stop telling the story of this war. Wow, we've won. And we're just going to stop and walk away. I had a buddy of mine back in the college. And he had been a scout. He had been a scout with the U.S. Army. And he literally talked about when he had to sit in his position and he had to watch a Kurdish village being wiped the fuck out by Hussein's forces, as he was told by the higher ups to just sit there and observe. The Kurds that supported our war against Saddam Hussein then got slaughtered while we observed them because, you know, we had already won. We had already won. Oh, Lordy. You know, here's the thing. I was told before that I would get tired of winning. We would win so much that I would get tired of winning. Here's the thing. I don't need that much winning. I don't need that much winning. But you know, every once in a while would be nice. You know, just once in a while. Anywho, so I want to talk about Trump losing the trade war, because again, it is going to be very significant to all of us, and this could bring about a pretty bad economic crap show. Again, I talk about this, and a lot of people say, like, again, a lot of people that I know, they're like, you know, talk about the stock market or whatever else. They're like, oh, you know, you've got money in the stock market, you care or whatever. And the point that I try to tell people is that no, I have the lived experience of being laid off as a pizza delivery driver when I had military, bachelor's degree from college, MCSE, lots of certifications and training in technology, and was experienced. And I had the lived experience of not being fired. This wasn't like I walked into the pizza place and I was like, I'm an MCSE degreed veteran and I can't deal with this crap anymore. Right? That would be getting fired. That would be getting fired. Man, if I got fired for that, I'd be like, I probably shouldn't have done that, but that's fine. No, I got laid off. I got laid off of pizza delivery. And so when I talk about this, You all fucking think it's a joke. All you Node developers out there, you're like, well, maybe if you had known Node back in 2002, things would have been different. Yeah, motherfuckers. You're going to be hilarious in the food lines, soup kitchens. So anyways, I'm concerned about this. That's when the dominoes fall. Everything just slides in weird ways. Again, saw this with the dot-com bust, saw this with the Great Recession, and I think we're going to be running into problems. Because again, it's kind of like the Great Recession is much like the first Gulf War, where I don't think the Great Recession is over. I actually don't think the Great Recession is over. I think we don't have the right words. Right? We need words for like economic kerfuffle, like a recession. So a recession is 2 quarters of economic decline. That's a recession. And so obviously, as you say, well, we're not in the Great Recession anymore because that was back in 2009 or whatever. But the thing is, like that's what started the recession or whatever. But the implications of the recession basically have just gotten papered over and 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 papered over. Again, 1% interest rates and the government printing money and all this weird crap going on. I don't think we've gotten out the Great Recession, the Great Kerfuffle, right? And I think once this fucking domino falls, it's gonna be brutal, and you're gonna have a lot of folks who are like, but I know Node. Yeah, nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna care. Can you eat Node? Can you eat Node? Nope. Anyways, that's why I care about this stuff. If you don't know, I'm known as Eli the Computer Guy. My current project is something called silicondojo.com. Basically the idea of what if high quality technology education was simply as accessible as water. We have self-study classes, so we have Python, SQL, Bottle Web App Framework. I'm currently working on Introduction to Programming. We're gonna have AI soon. I'm kind of working on all those. So you can just simply go and you can learn those. So Python, SQL, and Bottle simply exist. You can take that right now, no cost. We do interactive Zoom sessions, generally about once a week. This week we're having a guest on the show, Steve Newman, who is the biz dev person for an ISP in the area. So we're going to talk about business development for an ISP, so you folks get a better idea of what business development looks like. The greatest idea in the world doesn't matter if you can't figure out client acquisition cost. And every Monday, I do one-on-one conversations with folks from 1 to 5. You can sign up for those at silicondojo.com. So with that, let's get to the tears. Oh, look at Eli crying again. Yeah, motherfucker, I am crying. Why is Eli crying all the time? Because the president of my country is trying to destroy my country. And this, again, it's coming more and more into focus as we start to see, we can actually start to figure out what the hell's going on. Again, most of the time when we have government policy, even when we have shit government policy, like it takes a while to come about. Like we know it's going to come about. Like there's this whole disaster going on in Florida right now. One of the many disasters. With condo fees. So there was a condo, fell over a number of years ago. Basically, it fell over because it wasn't getting the maintenance that it required. One of the reasons it wasn't getting the maintenance it was required is because the maintenance fund wasn't funded well enough. So basically, the state government stepped in. They came up with a law that said, again, all the backlogged work had to be done for condos, and that maintenance had to be fully funded. And so all of a sudden, you now have this problem where you have people that bought condos and were paying condo fees, and they were paying like, let's say $500 a month in condo fees, but that wasn't enough to actually maintain the building. So in order to get everything up to snuff and to have maintenance fees going into the future, basically they're double, tripling, quadrupling. So you have people that were able to pay for their condo, pay for fees, the whole 9 yards. Their fees go from $500 a month to $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month, and all of a sudden they're basically becoming homeless because they can no longer afford to live in the condo that they purchased, right? Government, yay. Florida government of the Republicans. I'm just going to put it out there. Are we sure the Republicans understand business? Like maybe it's just the Democrats have been like so bad from business policy decisions. We all just kind of assumed that the Republicans actually knew business. maybe they don't either. Maybe they don't either. Anyways, but that's the thing, right? That's been on the table. That law got passed. Everybody knew it was coming. Again, it is an absolute and utter crap show. Again, the policies of the Republican administration in Florida are kicking grandma and grandpa out to the curb because they can't afford the condo fees for the condo they already purchased. No, we've seen that coming, right? There's a lot of other stuff out there. Again, we've seen it coming down the pike. The interesting thing about these tariffs is that this basically came out of almost nowhere, and they are so massive, right? And it changes. It changes by the day. One minute there's tariffs, the next minute there's not going to be a tariff, and there is going to be a tariff, and there's postponement of the tariff, and then there's going to be a postponement of the tariff. No, I didn't say there was going to be a postponement of the tariff. There's definitely going to be a tariff. When's the tariff going to be? Maybe it's going to be in a month. Maybe it's going to be in 2 weeks. Who the hell knows, right? And the issue is this creates a massive instability in the business environment. And in the modern world, the logistic systems that we've created over the past 40 years are not designed to deal with a senile old loser who basically has his hand on the wheel, and the fangless GOP poodles that are all pretending to be alpha males to such a degree they're not bothering to actually be men for once in their goddamn lives, right? So instead of the GOP actually doing their responsibility, instead of them actually standing up for the people, for the economy, for what needs to be done in the United States, they're primping and prancing around and going, look at us, aren't we pretty poodles, right? And the issue is for the business environment, like, what the hell do you do? It was very interesting. If you have not seen it, it's long. Oh my God, for a YouTube video, it's so long. I still haven't finished it, to be clear, I haven't finished it. So Gamers Nexus did a video about how tariffs are affecting the computer industry. Now for Gamers Nexus, this is hyper-focused on gaming, right? So GPUs and custom cases and all that kind of stuff. But, technology is technology. If this is affecting gaming computers, it's going to be affecting servers, it's going to be affecting switches and routers and all that kind of stuff, right? And one of the most interesting parts is as he goes and he talks to all these different companies, talks to a couple of different computer assemblers, all right? He talks to Corsair, he talks to Louis Rossmann, he talks to a shipping agent. And one of the funny things is, right, the gag during his interviews is, hey, as of right this moment, while we are doing the interview, can you tell me definitively what tariff policy we're currently under for your company? And most of them kind of hem and haw. They say, well, I think this is what's currently going on. And what gets to be even worse, which is kind of an interesting thing, is how the tariffs aren't necessarily working how you think the tariffs are working. So you're like, okay, so the tariff is 145% from China. Again, like it or hate it, it's 145%. It's like, well, here's the thing. This product that's coming in has like so much steel and aluminum. So there's steel and aluminum tariffs. So again, for gaming, when you got cases and all that kind of stuff. What then becomes interesting is then you then have to figure out what percentage of the item coming in is aluminum or steel. So again, for a lot of this gaming stuff, again, you got heat sinks, that type of stuff. So it might be a large percentage. Well, that percentage of the product is then apparently tariffed under the aluminum or steel rate, which is like 20%. So it's not like, so if you bring this thing in, it's not that thing gets in at 145%. It's that thing comes in, and then you figure out how much of it's like aluminum or steel. And the aluminum or steel is then tariffed at like 20%, and then the rest of it is like tariffed at like 145% or something like that, which is just absolutely insane, right? And then they talk about with all these different situations where they can't figure out what to do because they're not told that it's a 20% tariff rate. So if it's 20% tariff rate, then they can figure out the numbers. The numbers work or they don't work, whatever. But then with that it continues to change, that they have no idea then basically how to order stock for the future. So the issue that you run into in the business world is, right, you're doing your business in a competitive environment. Part of the competitive environment is if somebody else can do something cheaper than you, then they can wipe the floor. They can basically make you go bankrupt, right? If everybody can buy a product from somebody else for half the price that you're selling it, they're going to go and buy that particular product, right? So that's why a lot of companies, again, companies like Apple was literally air freighting tons. Like they talked about it by the ton, tons of iPhones into the United States so they could have stock of those iPhones before the new tariffs go into place, right? So they're able to do that. So then they can sell their smartphone, that's all it is, they can sell their smartphone at the rate they could before the tariffs went in. Anybody else that's then bringing in their smartphones after the tariffs go into effect, their cost has now gone up by like 145% or 20% or I don't know what the hell it is, but it's gone up by some percent now. And so basically, Apple can undercut the competition simply because they were able to bring in the products that they were going to sell before the tariff hit. And so the people that are bringing in their products now, they're getting, they have to pay that tax, right? The Trump GOP tax on every single American, right? They now have to pay that, and then they have to add that tax into whatever price it is that they're going to sell the product for, and therefore the price of their item goes up, and therefore Apple can be more competitive. Well, the issue is, again, especially when we don't know what's going on, is what happens if you're looking at this and you're saying, well, okay, we got 145% tariffs. I can figure out how to make this work. Right? You're a business person. You can figure it out. Again, that's what all these politicians, again, whether it's fucking Obama or whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, there's this idea that CEOs can just figure it out. That's their job. I literally heard that from the Trump administration not that long ago, when literally they were asked by the CNBC correspondent, how are the CEOs going to deal with the abjectly insane policies? And the Trump administration spokesperson said, well, that's their job. Fucking. Oh. Right? So the issue is, what if you decide? What if you're like, okay, you know what? I can do this. I'm a CEO. I can figure out how to make a profit when I'm getting taxed 145% on everything coming in. And so then you throw your money on the table, right? You throw $100,000 down, $1 million down, whatever it is to bring in the products, right? Okay, you got all the products. You're going to keep your business going. And the Trump administration comes through and says, tariffs are going to substantially come down. So your competition, who maybe had stock, so let's say by hook or by crook, right? January, again, when you buy things like stock, if you do have a warehouse, you might buy a lot of stock just so you can have it for a while, or again, depending on how things get manufactured. So let's say your competition, they just had a lot of stock. They had a lot of stock, in February or March, and so everything was fine. You then buy $1 million or whatever of the stock at 145% tariffs because you're like, I can figure this out. And then all of a sudden, Trump drops the tariffs back to 20%. So your competition that has been riding along, selling the products in inventory based off of the prices they paid a month or so ago, they then get to the point to reorder. They then reorder. When they reorder, they're not paying 145% tariffs. They're paying 20% tariffs or 10% tariffs or no tariffs. Who the hell knows? They then get their product in, and they can now sell your product that's competitive to yours for a fraction of your cost. So basically, you had to pay the Trump administration an insane tax to basically go bankrupt. That is a hell of a thing. And that's the problem these businesses are dealing with, is they have no idea what the hell is going on, right? And all these alpha dog poodles in the Republican Party are more interested in primping and preening and pretending to be alpha men than actually giving us a system that anybody can make sense of. And the issue is then going to become, with this abject failure of the senile old loser, is it's gonna start basically water hammering the system. So what water hammering is, if you ever deal with plumbing, right? Basically, when you turn on the water for the first time or whatever for a house, or you shut it off for a while, you got to turn it on. You need to open up the faucets in your house so that when you turn the water on, basically the water comes in and it basically fills up all the pipes in your system, and there's a release for the pressure because you have at least a couple of nozzles open, so the water comes out. So basically, it slowly fills up the plumbing in the house. The issue you can have, basically, if you don't have the faucets on, you can get a water hammer. Basically, what the water hammer is when the water comes through the pipes, there's no place to release pressure, and so basically, when that water comes through, it just hammers the ends of the pipes wherever it finds the ends of a pipe, and actually can do a massive amount of damage. Facilities that deal with things like hydroelectric power, right? They have to deal with water hammer. Again, much more significant than your house, that type of deal. Again, it's that just the pressure of the water. You think of water, who the hell cares? Again, you think about water in a 3/4 inch pipe, who the hell cares? But the 3/4 inch pipe cares, right? A water hammer can bust apart your pipes pretty easily. And the reason is because it's all just getting hammered through at once. And so the issue that we're running into right now, right, is if you look at what's going on with the logistics systems of the world at this point, it's becoming this water hammer type scenario. So basically, people knew that tariffs were going to come into effect, right? So we had a system that, wasn't doing great. Let's be honest, under the Biden administration, it wasn't doing great, but it was going. And then all of a sudden, you have the Trump administration come in, again, start doing all their senile policies, right? They're doing whatever the hell they're doing here, right? And so all of a sudden, it's like, okay, tariffs are going to come into effect. And so what happens is a lot of companies and such start buying products, and they start trying to bring things in before the tariffs take effect. So again, think about this with Apple, right? They brought in tons, it's like tens of tons of iPhones. So basically overnight, they needed as many iPhones as possible, put in their boxes, wrapped up, shipped, put into the air freight system and brought over here, right? And so all of a sudden, that's a hammer on the logistics system. So any planes that are capable of air freight, they now need to be put into service to bring all these iPhones over. Again, anybody that can come in and do the work, you need to finish as many iPhones by the end of the day as possible. Overtime, bring in more employees, the whole 9 yards. And so it's just work to the point of breaking the system. We got to get this done. And then the issue then becomes, right, then as soon as the tariffs hit, then the work goes away. All of those planes that were doing air freight 24 hours a day, they now sit on the ground. So it's very interesting with shipping between China and the United States is already down by approximately 30%, somewhere between 10 to 30%, depending on who you go by, right? Because basically there's all this shipping, again, to bring in products, shipping containers worth of products. And apparently at this point, we're down by something like 800,000 shipping containers. So think about this. Think about a shipping container. Look at a shipping container, all right? How much work, how much economic activity do you think is involved with a shipping container of products? So sometimes a shipping container of products is going to be, a tractor or two. Sometimes a shipping container of products is going to be God knows how many iPhones, right? But think about that. Think about a shipping container and how much economic activity there is there. And think about this. $1 million. $1 million equals approximately 20 man-years of work. Right, so if you figure $50,000 a year for an employee, let's just say on average in the United States, that means $1 million of economic activity equals 20 man-years. How many millions of dollars of economic activity is in a single shipping container? Now there's 800,000 less of those, right? So you have the hammer comes through, everybody works as hard as possible, and then once that's done, all of a sudden, you got to start laying people off. Again, businesses aren't social systems or whatever else. You do not get paid just because you show up to work. You get paid in order to ship a product, essentially. You get paid based off of a return on investment. So if there's no products to ship, you have to get laid off. So here's the issue that happens, right? So you work, and then you go off and go to layoff phases. And in the layoff phase, again, everything has to be brought down. Again, because all of this is just normal business stuff. It's whatever, it just is as it is, right? And so it's like, okay, if you have a factory working 24 hours a day, then all of a sudden the factory needs to produce, 60% less, right? So you start winding things down. Again, you start laying people off, that type of deal. Well, the issue is again, with the Trump administration already saying that we lost. We lost this. Trump lost the war that he initiated, right? Because it's unsustainable. And again, think about this, right? Let's see here. Donald Trump said the 145% tariffs he imposed on Chinese imports will eventually come down substantially, as he expressed optimism about future talks to reach a U.S.-China trade deal. Trump's remarks Tuesday to reporters in the Oval Office came after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent earlier in the day said in a closed-door speech that the trade standoff between the United States and China is not sustainable. The war that we started is not sustainable. Quote, we're going to be very nice. We're going to be very nice, and we'll see what happens, Trump told reporters when asked whether he planned to play hardball. But ultimately, he added, quote, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. So we want them involved, but they have to, and other countries have to make a deal. And if they don't make a deal, we'll set the deal. All right, so think about this with businesses. Everybody buys, then you lay off. And then when you lay off, right, people are going to do what people are going to do. Maybe they're going to go to college. Maybe they're going to move. Maybe they're going to have heart attacks. Maybe they're going to commit a word I can't say because I don't want this video to go away on YouTube, right? And then all of a sudden, if the tariffs go down again and demand increases, well, then all of a sudden, right, then there's more demand. Then you need to spin up the factories. Then you need to get the ships moving, right? All this stuff takes time. It takes energy. It takes resources. And all that time, energy, resources that you're spending winding things up and winding things down and winding things up and winding things down and winding things up and winding things down aren't time and energy factories can be using in order to manufacture iPhones and get iPhones from China to the United States or whatever else. Right? And so the issue that we're dealing with here is we have an incredibly unstable business environment where nobody has any idea what's going to happen from one day to the other. And the issue is that along with the other stuff in the U.S. economy, I think is going to be devastating at the end of the day. Again, if you go down and you look at, Florida, their condo market is a damn disaster at this point in time. If you look at things like property, home insurance, again, this is a big issue, right? Property, right? Since the government has been an abject failure at actually producing real economic improvements in the United States for 2 decades at this point, basically they've been papering over their abject failure by having the price of properties go through the roof. Well, the issue is when the price of properties go through the roof, then insurance for those insanely expensive properties is also going to go through the roof. So as we have wildfires, I'm not going to even say more wildfires. I'm not even going to talk about climate change or any of that crap. As we just have normal wildfires, as we have normal hurricanes, as we have normal tornadoes. Right, here's the thing. If a house cost $100,000 20 years ago and a tornado comes through and wipes out a couple of houses, right, that's a few $1 million that the insurance program has to deal with. Now what happens if the exact same houses are worth $1 million? It's 10x, essentially 10x to replace those damn houses. And unfortunately, when you have to insure properties valuables to that extended level, then the property insurance market basically starts failing. And that's what we've seen. So people with houses, with mortgages, with the rest of it, they're not able to pay for home insurance at this point. Right? We have all these other issues going on in the United States, an abject failure of our political class as they prance around like defanged poodles, right? And all of those other issues as this economic water hammer is going to be hammering our logistics system is going to be brutal. And again, that's where the dominoes fall. Why do condo fees in Florida affect you? Why does property insurance in the country affect you? Why does home values in the country affect you? What's going on again with student loans and education systems and all that kind of stuff? Because all of these things come together as a massive macro force to hammer the hell out of our economy. And nobody seems to actually be planning on what the future will look like. Again, one of the most fascinating things about the senile old loser is that we hear about how he's trying to destroy the current education system. And again, I'm not a fan of wokeness. I am a fan of DEI, but not how it's been promulgated or whatever, propagated. But here's the issue, right? He's going after Harvard, right? He's going after Harvard, and he's fucking with Columbia. Man, anybody, you hit me, I'm gonna hit you harder, right? He's having a fucking tantrum. Everybody's gonna know that his feelings, his pathetic little feelings are hurt. But here's the thing with all that. Where's the policy to spin up trade schools? Again, I think 4-year degrees for most people are for the birds. Most people basically need a trade. And again, when we see trade, when I say trade, you can almost call it a white-collar trade. Again, you can do accounting, right? You can do white-collar work. Management. Why do you need a 4-year degree to do management? Why do you need a 4-year degree to do a lot of things? Again, think about this. Like when I went to school, 40 credit hours. So it's 120 credit hours is a bachelor's degree. In the United States, 40 credit hours. So a third of that bachelor's degree were general education requirements. Again, it's not the degree program that you're going through. It's not hard stuff. It's myth and modern mythology, humanities. Again, that made sense. Again, you go back 50 years ago when it was hard to get a book, right? When you couldn't just go to Amazon and get a book on your Kindle. Fine, having that kind of stuff probably made a lot of sense. But again, it's 2025, right? I read every day, like literally right now. I'm reading a book on the assassinations in retribution for the Armenian genocide. This is what I do for fun. Now, don't get me wrong. When I go to sleep at night, I read Dresden Files. When I'm going to sleep at night, I read Dresden Files. But during the day, yeah, I read about the Armenians who assassinated the Turks that were responsible for the Armenian genocide. But anyways, I can just go to Kindle. I can download that. I can read that. Right? Again, before that, I read a lot of stuff. Anyways, all kinds of cool stuff. Again, the drugs, the Nazis being hopped up on meth. That probably explained a lot. Anyways, all right. So in a world of Kindles, not to be stupid, but in a world of Kindles, do we need to spend a third of our time in these college degree programs with the humanities or whatever else? Maybe not get rid of them entirely, but right? But that's the thing, is the bachelor's degree program, right? It's a moneymaker. It's more about the professors getting paid than you getting an education. That's just simply the reality of it, right? So are you seeing with the senile old losers administration where we are going to get a tremendous investment into the trade schools? Are we seeing, again, even for my generation, even for Gen X, right? High school should have gotten you a middle class salary. What? Right? We have vocation programs. A buddy of mine went through the plumbing program, right? So if you weren't on the college track, you could go to VOTEC track, and in VOTEC in our area, they did plumbing, and they did welding, and they did electrical work, and basically you could come out with the knowledge required to get a middle class lifestyle. Right, think about this. We pay, $120,000 more or less to train our children for 12 years. 12 years. Our students are under the care of the government to get educated, and many of the students cannot read the diplomas that they get issued when they graduate high school. Is the administration of the senile old loser actually creating systems to improve that? No. So what's happening? Our logistic system is being destroyed. Our government is being ravaged. At the exact same time, property market is going to hell. We still don't have health care. Again, whether your gender is boy, girl, other, like whatever your gender is, if you have a heart attack, there is a very good chance that in the United States you are going to go bankrupt over that. Is that being fixed? Where are the hospital systems? Again, whether they're capitalist hospital systems or socialist hospital systems, where is that being built? Nowhere. We have a disaster of a healthcare system. We have a disaster of an education system. We have a housing crisis, right? We have all of these issues going on. And now we're getting this economic stupidity happening. And we're getting the economic stupidity from somebody who doesn't have a plan. 1 minute's one thing, the next minute's the other thing, the next minute we lost, right? Because that's the thing, right? With the whole war, with fighting, we're American. We got to tell you what to do. That doesn't work if you literally already come out and say we can't do this. Right, it's one thing for the big bad puppy dog to come out and say, well, the American public is skittish right now, but I will be their courage. Right? Again, gotta be careful with that, gotta be careful. But that's powerful. Look, our people may be skittish, but I will be their courage. Right, that's something. Somebody on the other side of the negotiating table goes, well, right, I'm not dealing with the American people. Like, if I could actually deal directly with the American people, I could probably get through this. But I'm dealing with this person that's telling me I'm gonna win. All right. But here's the thing: what happens when they're sitting across the table from somebody that says, well, hey, yeah, this trade war I started? Yeah, well, I mean, we both know this is unsustainable, right? And then you gotta think about the other side with this. Again, you gotta think about the Chinese folks. You gotta think about the Russian folks. You gotta think about the Iranian folks. Again, we're all over the world. I mean, think about this. Like with China. Again, America, United States will not stop screaming about the 9-dash line. And the 9-dash line seems kind of stupid. I'll put it out there. 9-dash line seems kind of stupid, right? So there's this whole thing with China, South China Sea. They created a line in the South China Sea. And they said, it's ours. You're like, why is it yours? 'Cause historical reasons, right? Oh my God, we lose our mind. We lose our minds over the South China Sea. Here's the thing, right? Our soldiers are in Japan. They're in South Korea, right? They're in Europe. They're in Africa. They're in the Middle East. Right, we're losing our mind over the South China Sea, and Trump right now is talking about bombing the ever-loving crap out of Iran. Again, where will World War III start for the United States? Will it start in Iran? Will it start in Ukraine? Will it start in China? China has a dumbass 9-dash line in one sea in the world, and we lose our crap. We think we should basically be able to bomb the hell out of anybody anywhere in the world if they displease us. And so one of the things you have to think about, again, for the populations of these different countries, is when do they just get tired of our crap? Again, it goes back to value. What is intrinsically valuable, right? Why does somebody buy an Audi versus a Ford? Like I talked about this before, right? So back when I still mattered on YouTube, when I still mattered, right? I was making the money. Anyway, so I wanted an Audi. I don't know why I wanted an Audi. Probably saw too many Marvel movies. But I was like, I'm going to go buy an Audi. And I had cash. This wasn't loans. This wasn't that crap. Wow. Gonna buy me an Audi. And the interesting thing is I went, and it's me being me, I went to buy an Audi. I sat in a really nice Audi. I was like, wow, this is a pretty nice car. Saw the price tag. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, eh. And then I went to the Ford dealership, and I bought a Ford Escape. Ford Escape, titanium Ford Escape. I bought a titanium Ford Escape. I don't know. It's just like, it's a fine car. It's a car. I'll buy the nicest damn Ford Escape there is. I love Ford Escape. I really do. I like Ford Escapes. Anyways, right? Again, when you're looking at things like cars, why would somebody buy an Audi for multiples of the price of a Ford Escape? Again, for me, I realize I don't care what you think. If you judge me based off of my car, you're a dumbass. If you're like, oh, he drives a Ford, great. I didn't want to talk to you anyway, right? But again, there's this idea of why things are valuable. What will you spend money on? Again, it's interesting, like in the in the crowdfunding world. Again, for people that are important, not me, other people. But like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson basically told young men to make their damn beds. I wish I could say that with a straight face. I can't. Just make your bed. God damn it. Anyways, right? When he was on Patreon, he was making $90,000 a month from young men just being happy to hand him cash for telling them to make their bed. This is on top of all the products and shit that he was saying. This was on top of books and everything else he was doing. He was getting 90 grand a month just for people to show their appreciation. And again, that's the interesting thing about the modern world. When you start thinking about value, like why are things valuable? Again, so like with lifestyle brands. So this came up a lot in the early 2000s. So manufacturing has become relatively trivial. And so when I was growing up, manufacturing still wasn't trivial. It was done, but it wasn't trivial, obviously. But and so when you had like North Face and you had Mountain Hardwear and you had Patagonia, you had all these different clothing brands, basically the idea started to become that there were lifestyle brands. You were not buying a coat. You were not buying gloves. You were buying Patagonia or North Face or Mountain Hardwear, right? The logo was the valuable thing that you were actually buying. So the reason that you spend $150 on a coat, a Mountain Hardwear coat versus $30 on a Walmart coat is because you're not a Walmart person. Walmart people can buy Walmart coats. You're telling the world you're a Mountain Hardwear type person. You used to like Mountain Hardwear. They kind of went to hell. Then they disappeared. Anyways, right? But it's interesting to be thinking about this. Like what are the value of things, and what are people willing to put money on the table for? Again, you think about this like with World War II, the idea of things like victory gardens, and how many people went around to get metal and things to be recycled, and how many people went without. They had ration books and that type of thing in order to support the war effort, to kick Hitler in the buttocks or whatever. And it's an important thing to kind of consider there is like when you're sitting there and you're looking at the wealth that you have, the money that you have, what you spend that money on basically is based off of your values. And so an interesting thing is when you have the Trump administration start things like trade wars with China, one of the interesting questions that then has to be asked there is how are the Chinese people going to deal with this? Again, like there's this idea, right? There's this bulldog mindset, right? The defanged poodle mindset. I will tell you. But remember with Xi, right? He is a leader of a people, and leaders of people can go away either by elections or nooses, one or the other. I mean, he does have to keep the people happy enough. And so with the Trump administration directly attacking China, and again, this is after the Obama policies, right? There's something called the Pacific Pivot. Under Obama, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, right, pointed our entire military apparatus at China to militarily isolate them. Right? There is something called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. Basically, it was supposed to be a free trade agreement. It's supposed to be a free trade agreement between the United States and all these Asian countries. Literally, we were not going to allow China into the TPP until the first round was already done, because we didn't want them to have a vote on the initial creation of it. So we were literally economically going to isolate them with the Trans-Pacific Partnership by allowing them to come in later, and then they would have to go by the rules that we already created, right? So we are pointing all of our weapons at China. We are stating categorically that we are willing to send our soldiers to slaughter the Chinese if one of our psychotic old bastards in the White House, any of the psychotic old bastards in the White House, loses their minds or can't get it up one day, right? We've already stated that we're going to try to economically isolate them. And then, as we've seen with the Biden administration and now with the Trump administration, with the whole basically trying to ban or bar AI chips going to China, the idea that the United States should be able to tell the Chinese people that you have progressed far enough. And again, we saw this with the restrictions against Huawei before, and the many restrictions that have happened in the past, right? The senile old men in the White House literally think they should have the power to tell a nation of 1.3 billion people, you have progressed far enough. As an old white guy, I do not feel comfortable if your society progresses any further. Think about that from the Chinese mindset. You have a country that is willing to slaughter your people. You have a country that's willing to economically isolate you. You have a country that's willing to say, you should not progress any further. You should not progress any further than I feel comfortable with. And then they start a trade war. And then a senile old bastard from that god-awful country starts a trade war with your people that is going to cause a massive amount of economic damage to your society. And then that simpering, old, senile loser tells you that they've already lost. They have already lost. We cannot continue this war that we started. If you were a Chinese person, how willing would you be to burn some of your wealth just to stick it to that old bastard over there? Right? If you were a Chinese person, to what ends would you be willing to go simply to cause pain to those people? And that's one of the issues we have with American policy. Again, the supremacist policy, the manifest destiny policy, right? The idea we are superior, you are inferior, your beef is weak. Have you heard this? Jesus Christ, these people, oh my God. One of these guys, the bald guy with the beard, and he was talking about like the Europeans don't take our beef, they don't want our beef. Literally, American beef is strong. European beef is weak. Dude, what does that even mean? What do you mean their beef is weak? Doesn't make sense. That's not how you beef. That's not how beef works. It's not how beef works. Anyways, right? The problem with that manifest destiny policy, and again, the endemic supremacy of the American mindset, especially in political classes, is that we try to force these things onto other people. And we say we have the right to punish. We don't just have the right to punish you. We have the right to slaughter you. We have the right to slaughter generations of your family because our president, is a little bit flaccid today. And then there's just this idea that they'll say, oh, sure, yes, sure, well, yes, massa, yes, massa, right? And the problem is that's a binding force for those people. Right, again, because China's got issues. That's the thing. It's not that China doesn't have issues. China has so many issues. China has so many issues. But here's the thing. Who's it easier to be mad at? Who's it easier to be mad at? It's like, if you're mad at your administration, again, like with us, what do we do about the senile old loser, right? If you know the problem is your leadership, if you know the problem is your government, if you know the problem is your society, that's a very difficult thing to deal with. Because you're in your society, some people are going to agree with the president, some people are going to disagree with the president. And then it's like, where are we going to go with this? How are we going to solve the problem? Even if we get the senile old loser out, how do we know we're not going to get another senile old loser? The senile old loser, Biden might be better than the senile old loser you don't know. Anyways, right? Like all this stuff, right? Think about the Chinese people. Again, they've got pollution problems. Again, they've got economic problems. They got all kinds of stuff going on. But then you have the senile little bastard from the United States comes in, starts trying to put your people under a thumb. It's a hell of a lot easier to be pissed off at that guy, right? There's not a lot of argument there. Not a lot of people are going to protect Trump, right? If you're in China. It's a lot easier to motivate a country around the hate of the other than focus on the problems of the country. And that's a massive uniting force. And so the issue is what happens now? We have launched these aggressive actions against China. At the exact same time, we're stating we do not have the ability to back up those aggressive actions, with the idea being that they have to submit because obviously we are superior. And how does that hit the economic system? Right? Lots of things are going normally. Then lots of stuff gets shipped in, people get overtime and all that kind of stuff, then they get laid off, then we maybe have a little bit of a detente, then it gets worse, then it might get better, then it gets worse, then maybe it gets better, then it gets worse and worse and worse, and maybe it's a little bit better. And then again, think about this. If you're a business, what do you do in this environment? If you're a business, do you hire in this environment? Because remember, when you hire somebody, again, especially in the technology world, it takes 6 months to a year to fully onboard them. Are you willing to invest $100,000 in onboarding an employee in this environment? Do you rent real estate? Again, real estate's a big part of our market, again, especially with work from home. Are you willing to put a 5-year lease, a 10-year lease down on a chunk of property in this particular environment? Are you willing to pay for fixed asset costs? Again, the idea with the Trump administration. Well, if we put all these tariffs out there, then people will bring factories back to the United States. But are they? Because you don't know what the tariffs are, right? If the tariffs are 20%, it's still better to make it in China. If the tariffs are 50%, maybe it's better to make it in Vietnam. If the tariffs are 145%, maybe it's better to make it in the United States. But here's the thing, imagine this. Imagine if you were stupid enough. Imagine if you were stupid enough to believe Trump for half a second, and you actually decided to dump millions of dollars into building a factory in the United States. And then the entire reason for building that factory could literally disappear tomorrow as Trump puts his fucking tail between his legs and cries and begs for Xi to stop. And that's not including the stupidity with Europe. Again, we've got 10% 10% tariff somewhere. Again, there's 10% tariffs here. If you do business with Venezuela, there's 20% tariffs there. Oh, you side-eyed Trump, you got some tariffs going on. And again, at the exact same time, one of the things to think about with this is think about how willing Trump is to use our military as a threat even to our allies. Again, think about this with Greenland. Think about this with Greenland, right? Literally, he put on the table using military force to take Greenland. He is willing to send in soldiers to take Greenland. And if you send in soldiers to take Greenland, that means American soldiers are going to be killing Europeans. Think about that for a second. Just so he can prove to be a big dog, he'll send our young men and women in to slaughter who are supposed to be our allies. How do you feel about that as a European? It's like, oh no, that's not the case. It'd be a happy military takeover. But again, if you're in Greenland, there's gonna be a few revolutionaries, a few people to fight the good fight. And then how are you gonna deal with those insurgents? Again, you give young people the weapons and tell them to defend a piece of property, and people are gonna die. Again, my family is from Ohio, or a chunk of my family is from Ohio. So Kent State Massacre was a big thing for my parents' generation, right? You give young soldiers, put them out there, tell them to protect this land, and then all of a sudden, little white Ohioans are being shot and murdered by the soldiers. And Trump is fine. Trump is fine with the threat of slaughtering our allies' people. So anyways, I don't know. We're screwed. How long until we get this senile little bastard out? Here's the thing. How long until the poodles actually start to get irritated? That's what I don't understand with all this, again, with the Republicans. I thought the Republicans were the free trade party. Free trade, globalization, corporate interests. Aren't the Republicans supposed to be the party of corporate interests? Again, and I know the Democrats are supposed to be the party of the blue collar. Hey, could we have the party of hospitals? I'm just going to put it out there. What if we had like the party of hospitals? By hook or by crook, American people should be able to afford health care. Whether the government pays for the health care or you pay for the health care, we as a society, regardless of what checking account it comes out of, should be able to pay for health care. But we don't have that. But it's interesting. Again, watch the Gamers Nexus video. Again, watch Louis Rossmann as he talks. Watch the other folks out there. And again, they talk about how they sell products with 5% profit margins, right? So basically, they imported the product, comes at about $95, and then they wholesaled it for something like $100, right? They actually showed this. And now with tariffs or whatever, the product is going to cost them $300. And then Trump expects them to swallow the tariffs. Because that's what a good CEO would do. A good CEO wouldn't pass those tariffs on to the consumer. They would just eat it. It's like, yeah, no, but you can't sell things at $100 loss very long before your business is a loss. Watch the Gamers Nexus then. Watch the other people talking about business. Again, shipping and the rest of it. And then think where you are in this economic environment, right? If you're a young person and you've been used to a tech bull market for 16 years, right? Where are you? What value do you bring? Again, right now, Intel is laying off 20 some odd thousand people, 21,000 people. That's a Trump economy for you. Trump economy, Intel laying off 21,000 people. Right? Microsoft just came out. And they're going to be eliminating more of the low performers. right? It's not a layoff, right? They're not laying off technology professionals. They're simply eliminating low performers. Look at how these words get used. And then ask yourself where you fit into this mess. Because it's going to get bad. Again, that's the whole thing. Like right now with a lot of products, I think we're starting to see the price of products go up. But again, so many of these warehouses, they already had products in before the tariffs. They purchased more products. But now we're going to be getting to the point where all those products in the warehouses basically have been sold. And then we're going to get to the point where the products on the shelves are going to have those full tariffs in there. Again, Trump getting into your wallet and ripping out 145% in taxes. Again, think about that with sales tax. Think about that with sales tax, right? Again, it's funny going to different states. Some states have 5% sales tax. Some states have 10% sales tax. And you feel that. You feel that. When you go from a 5% sales tax state to a 10% sales tax state, you're like, damn, that hurt. Trump is doing 145% tax. You think going from 5% to 10% is like, that's a little painful. Imagine going from 5% to 145%. And the funny part about this, you know what's so amusing? What's so amusing about this? So they're taxing the crap out of all of us, and then, wait for it, they're charging tax on the tax. You ever think about this? Like when they mandate minimum wage to go up to $15 an hour, they don't ever talk about decreasing taxes, employment taxes. No, they just tax at the new rate, right? So if you had an item before, and there's a 5% sales tax on it, so let's say it's $100, so you pay $5 in taxes. Here's the funny part, right? For sales tax, so you get 145% tax, right? So let's just say whatever they're buying it for, let's say $80 and selling it for $100. So now let's say basically the price goes up to $200. Not only are you paying $100 in tax to Trump, but for the same product, instead of spending $5 in sales tax, you're now spending $10 in sales tax. So one of the things to think about this is, again, when we look at these taxes and this complete and utter idiocy, think about right now how the government is just going to be destroying you in the taxation system. At the exact same time, they say, well, the CEO should figure it the hell out. And again, as they take that money away, right? You know, if you go out to buy a TV, one day it's $500, the next is $1,000, right? Trump is taking $500 out of your pocket. So instead of being able to get a TV for $500 and then be able to take the kids and all that out to, I don't know, King's Dominion or whatever. No, Trump's going to take that money. Oh, at the exact same time, we're also going to be reducing taxes on the wealthy so that Elon Musk can take his gazillion kids to Epcot Center. You don't get to take your kids to King's Dominion so that Elon Musk can take his kids to Epcot Center. Again, how does that all hammer out? Because again, think about that. You know, as the government removes that money, right? $10 here, $5 here, $100 here, $1,000 there. What would you have done with that money? Again, think about that going into the local economy. You now no longer have $500. You no longer have that amount of money because the government took it from you, right? The Trump administration put exorbitant taxes on you so that the government is now getting that money. So instead of you having that $500 in your pocket, again, to go to the local restaurant, to go to, the local park, to buy coffee or whatever else, and then think about how that hits the cafes. Think about how that hits the restaurants. Think about how those hits continue down. So anyways, there you go. There are some thoughts. Trump lost the trade war. He has told the world, Trump, that he lost the trade war. This is unsustainable. Hey, look. Trump fucking hammered China in the nuts. And it's like, oh, but I'm a weak old man. But I'm a weak, senile old man. I can't actually deal with a fight with you. You have to come to the table. And here's the thing about humanity. Here's the thing. Like, I always think about that because, again, I got my degree in criminal justice. And so there's all these reasons. There's all these arguments for why people commit crimes, why people do what they do. Association theory, rational choice theory, disparity. There's all this kind of stuff. Right? Well, I think one of the interesting things that I figured out a long time ago is I think you have all these theories. It's almost like if-else statements. If else, if else, if else. But one of the problems you have to concern yourself when you're dealing with humans is sometimes if things don't work properly, we also have like this backcrap randomization function. So I think it's actually what helps humans survive, right? So if you're in a situation that is detrimental to you, right, you will try to do things to get out of this, relatively rational, within your mindset, rational things to get out. You'll try to do this, you'll try to do that, you'll try to do that, you'll try to do the other thing, right? Here's the problem. If all these things that you've done that have been relatively rational don't work, I feel like we fall back to the batshit randomization function. And what the batshit randomization function is basically where your brain just rolls the die on the stupidest ideas it's ever come up with and go, maybe that will work. We tried to be nice to the police officers. We tried to get elected into government positions so that we could improve our situation. We tried to be upstanding citizens and do all this kind of stuff, and we keep getting beaten down. So, hey, what if we try to burn the entire city to the ground? You know what we haven't tried? Burning the city to the ground. Right? That's one of the things that happens. And again, when you're dealing with people in nation states, well, we tried this, and we tried this, and we tried this, and we tried this. What if we try invading Taiwan right now? You do realize this is the best time for them to invade Taiwan. I was going to put that on the table. Like, if economic interconnectedness was supposed to be one of the big arguments for China not screwing with Taiwan because it would damage their relationship with the United States. And then we have a bat crap crazy senile old loser as a president who starts this idiocy. Is not now the absolute best time to firebomb the shit out of Taiwan? Put it out there. Just gotta put it out there. So anyways, put your thoughts down below. I'm sure you will. And yeah, we've all got to figure out. We've all got to figure out what the hell we're gonna do. Because yeah, it just doesn't. Like I say, when the economies go sideways, it just doesn't work the way you think it's going to. It's like it's a hell of a thing. Yeah, that's all I got. See y'all later.